Tuesday, July 31st to order. And the first item is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, move in a second. And there is I have one addition to the agenda. It's six items. Going to entertain it as 6A. Mr. Mike's cleaning request for a public assemblage permit. Is there any other changes or amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the amended agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. The next item is approval of the minutes of our July 10th Select Board meeting.
I'll move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to the meeting notes of the July 10th?
We have the one that was noted regarding the official record for the replacement motor of the 2012 International truck that was discussed at our last meeting. So do you need me to?
Yes, there's a recommended motion in the packet.
Okay. So I move that we approve the amendment, which is presented in our packet.
Yep. Item 8D.
Item 8D, regarding the purchase of a replacement motor for truck number 356, discussed at the board's June 26th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. So let's deal with the July 10th meeting minutes first. If there are no amendments to the July 10th meeting minutes, then let's approve the July 10th meeting minutes motion first. All in favor of that signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, and then the amendment to our June 26th board meeting minutes that we had approved at our last meeting. The motion that Laura made. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Citizen comments. Is there anyone here for something that's not on the agenda, please?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Ann Christie. I live in East Middlebury. Thank you for being here and being on top of all of the town's issues. I really appreciate it. The reason that I'm here is to thank you all and to give some explanation. At the last meeting, included in your packet was a report by Chris Beitzel from the state on complaints at the state airport. And different people have different amounts of information, but I wanted you all to be aware of how important that is and the role that you're playing. Kind of the history, there is a recent history, which is when the airport, when there was an extension being proposed, there were a lot of questions amongst neighbors, and we were not getting clear answers, and the whole issue got escalated and escalated, and there was a lot of energy on all sides with misinformation, people feeling they weren't being heard, people feeling that it was a done deal, and so my interest was in setting up a channel of communication so that as we go forward, there wouldn't be a need for people to be left out in the dark, receiving misinformation, any of that. But when there are issues, that there's a clear channel they can follow. So what I've done is I've actually put together a complaint procedure, and it was reviewed by Cisco Herrera, who's our airport manager, Chris Beitzel, who's in charge of 4 airports, and Roland Tebbetts, who's in charge of all 7 of the airports. And we all sat down and developed this complaint procedure. The name at the bottom of the completed procedure is Dan DeLabrio, who's head of, as you know, the rail and the airport in the state. And the town website has referral to the state website, which has that complaint procedure on it. And I'm still trying to get the word out to the community that it exists, and it's an avenue folks can follow. I've known of 2 people so far that have followed it with good results. Every quarter, Cisco at the airport gives the reminder to Chris at the state level to put together all the complaints that have been made into a public document, and that's the complaint report, and that's what you all looked at. And I am very appreciative that it's no longer just in the hands of a few concerned airport neighbors, but we have you taking a look at it. And it's really helpful for accountability, both for the state as well as for the neighbors. At the last meeting, as you remember, there was a pretty large issue around trees that had been cut that had not been what was approved of, and how we were going to make amends to that situation. And so this is just a procedure to help with those kinds of issues. I wanted to ask Laura, would it be helpful for me to come to the Health and Safety Committee meeting to do the same thing, or is it more the Selectboard that's reviewing that quarterly report?
Well, we're aware of it at the Public Health and Safety Committee, and you've made us aware of that. So I think you don't have to report again. We just need to be on the lookout for the next report.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So I'll be continuing to promote or communicate to our community that there is a complaint procedure in place, and there is a mechanism where if people have concerns, their concerns will be heard. And I'm working with Chris to make sure the quarterly report is accurate for both sides, just so we have a good paper trail. Are there any questions that any of you have on?
Well, just one clarification. So at the airport itself, is there something posted there that tells people where to go if they want to follow the?
There's not that I know of.
Okay. I mean, you're welcome to do that, to create some kind of flyer and put that up there that directs people to the website and the process. So.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And where is it available now, that form, the complaint
It's
form?
at the website.
On the town website?
Town website.
The town website, my understanding at our last communication, Kathleen, is that the town website refers to the state website with both the complaint procedure and the quarterly report.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
What have been the complaints, Jen?
I'm sorry?
What have been the complaints?
Well, one neighbor was concerned about the pollution of the fire retardant that is used on airport runways. And so he followed the first step of the complaint procedure, which is just to talk with the airport manager, Cisco. And he did that, and he found out that the tool that dispels the chemical he was really concerned about is not used at our airport. So that was one. The person who had a complaint on the last quarterly report was concerned about the tree clearing at the north end and felt that things had been left a mess. And because I'm still getting this in place and invested for all of our sakes, I rode my bike out there, and I thought the cutting did a really clean job, and they'd stacked up the brush in piles. So I didn't contact her directly about it. What Chris did in that quarterly report is in the conversation with her, he communicated exactly what the flight route was, because she also complained about some low-flying aircraft. And so he addressed her issue with that aircraft, giving her information that she needed, which is the perfect tool for that communication. And so the airport's been wonderfully quiet for quite a while. And so you may not get anything.
Depending on where you live, I guess. in
Oh,
that part, yeah.
how has your house
I live
been?
on the west and north end, and I know the neighbor who complained about all the mess they made. He's my neighbor also.
Okay.
So the whole summer, early summer, we had nothing but this huge construction vehicles going by our driveway every single day. The airport driveway, the service road they built is right parallel to my driveway.
Ah,
And they constantly, the whole summer, we had it. It's okay with me, but it wasn't quiet.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. So I'm glad that I'm letting you know that there is a complaint procedure
Yep, sure.
with full contact information for contacting any of these people.
Sure.
I also have Rollin Tebbets and other folks sent me additional information from the FAA because the VTrans is in charge of the airport from the ground, but it's the FAA that's in charge of the air traffic
Yes.
in the sky. And so he gave me all that contact information. So I have that. The state has it. I'm not sure that there's a reason to disseminate it because the complaint procedure goes through Chris Beitzel, who will contact the FAA.
Thank you.
And I'll just add that if you're going to the town website and you look under community websites and scroll down, you'll see a tab for the Middlebury Airport aircraft complaints, and that's where you'll find the detail that Ann is mentioning. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
okay.
So I appreciate you taking a look quarterly, whether there are any issues on that report or not. It's really helpful to have the governing folks aware
Thank you
of
for
it.
bringing it up. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Jan?
Thank you. My name is Jan Demers, and I'm the Executive Director for Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, or CVOEO. And my reason for coming is I feel accountable. I've never been before the Select Board in Middlebury, and I'm not certain if you know the full extent of the services that are offered by CVOEO. And I know I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to be very judicious, be quick, efficient, and hopefully have some time for some questions. Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, or CVOEO, is one of the 5 community action agencies in the state of Vermont. We were established under the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964, and we were a grassroots, we started out as a grassroots effort to work with people with low income or medium income, and to make sure that there was racial, social, and economic justice in our areas. So Middlebury, and specifically I have information about Middlebury. We have 11 programs, and they follow from crisis programs to stabilization programs to out-of-poverty programs. And Middlebury has a full range of our programs here. For crisis, we have food shelf, we have fuel, offerings of crisis fuel, and also the warmth program to make sure that people are warm during the wintertime. We have free access for taxes, so that taxes are done free of charge in our office. Housing. Last year, we worked with 114 Middlebury residents, Middlebury households, to obtain housing. Weatherization. We weatherized 93 homes in Middlebury in the last 5 years. Our Head Start, we have 4 Head Start classrooms in Middlebury at Mary Johnson, College Street, and let's see, there's a standalone program in Addison County Parent-Child Center. We have a Head Start classroom there. And our Financial Futures program, which is an asset development program, working with people, and I could go into it. I get very excited when I think about the way, the tools that we offer to people to recognize the assets that they have and to build them and to build a more secure future. But those programs offered in Middlebury were engaged in micro-business creation, making of business plans, our individual development accounts, which are matched savings. We have asset building classes that are offered. We have individual financial counseling, and we also will pull people's credit to make sure that they are aware of credit and then have an avenue to be able to build their credit up, to be able to save money for when they're going to rent a home or to buy insurance or something like that. Also, our Vermont Tenants program, which you may not know about, is offered statewide. And for that, we have a hotline for people who are renting and have run into difficulties, but we also have a rent right program of education that looks at what are the rights and responsibilities of renters and how to be able to have a successful rental life. And then the last program is involved with mobile homes. There is one mobile home park associated with Middlebury, and here we're involved specifically with emergency planning, hazard control, and that's built into the state plan, and so we give those services to people here in Middlebury. So we have 11 programs where we operate in Addison, Chittenden, and Franklin Grandisle counties. We have 175 staff, and I am open to your questions. I have the services that we have, our mission statement, and I also have our annual report. And I'm very open for questions.
Are there any questions? So Jan had sent me a letter asking if she could speak to us. I think she felt that it was beneficial for, not just for the advocacy of her agency, but also just to ensure that we know that it's out there as we're governing the town. So go ahead.
Hi, Jan. So I know you well, and I know the agency well, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to explain the range of programs that you have, especially because we're televised and people will have an opportunity to see that.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
And know that. So I think that's really valuable. So I'm interested in the weatherization program because I know there was a waiting list. I'm just wondering how that's working out, and I'm impressed that you got to 93 homes in Middlebury in the last 5 years, and that. It's surprising that people learn that they qualify for it that may not have thought that they did. So I encourage people to go to the website to learn what the criteria is for being eligible for weatherization.
Mm-hmm. Well, the wait list was quite critical in the last 2 years. We have a new director, Dwight DeCoster, and we've added more crew and auditors to our program. So the wait list that used to be 3 years long is now under a year.
And the other thing that's interesting about that program is that a renter can apply for that. And so if you're a landlord watching this tonight, that's really good to know because it could be the way that you could really upgrade your building.
That's
so
exactly right.
Your renter would apply for it, but you would authorize it, and then the work could be done.
That's exactly right. Laura, thank you.
You're welcome.
But
You can tell
weatherization
what her
is,
passion is.
well, and also.
Well, it's housing. It's taking care of
It's housing and
costs
it's
related
energy
to that.
efficiency, and it's for people that have low income. It's a strategy to be able to, if you're getting crisis fuel, and you have to have money every year to be able to pay your electric bills or your fuel bills, then there's not a way of getting ahead. But if you can have the short-term crisis taken care of and then go for the long-term solution, which is weatherization, then you're getting ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
So how easy is this process if somebody is in need of help for rent or fuel or something? how easy is that? Oftentimes I hear people complain to me that they went to agency like yours or some other and they get denied because of some reason. So how easy is that for
It's based on income.
income? Yes.
And then there are a number of agencies that work together on the program that we have for housing assistance. And they gather together every week and they look at the applications that come in and look at the sustainability of the family that's bringing forth the request for either a security deposit,
Yep.
back rent, or current rent. And as a unit of agencies together, they make that decision. Is it easy? Laura Morse last year worked with 114 families, households in Middlebury, and it's as easy to start the process as coming to our office on 54 Creek Road. So that, or calling the office and getting an appointment with Laura. Then strategizing about what are some of the ways that their housing needs can be taken care of, and not all of them are involve funding. There may be other options for people to be able to solve their housing needs. There certainly isn't enough money for everyone that has a need, and therefore, there are levels of priorities that are made to make sure that those people that are the most vulnerable receive the aid for housing. And we have we work with Charter House for people that are homeless and look at the vulnerability there and try to get people into housing as quickly as possible.
And how do you work with Hope?
We work really well with Hope. I know in the past that there have been problems. However, our people on the front lines, there's a limited amount of money. And there's a great need. So on the front lines, we go back and forth all of the time and work well. Hope does not have some of the heating solutions that we have in crisis fuel and in or the warmth program. So they will refer people over to us, and then so no, we work well with Hope.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions? I looked at the website here, like for weatherization qualification in Addison County, a family of four, $63,760 income. So it seems like a reason, like it would cover a large share of the community, and so anyways, it's not abnormally low. So it looks like they.
Right, it's 60% of median income for weatherization.
Is that where you come out with that?
Right. Yeah, other programs have other eligibility thresholds, but for weatherization, it's 60%. We generally don't need to go up to 60% because there are people that have old, drafty homes that that may be on a fixed income.
Yes.
And we have a system that's called Hancock. That's a prioritization and data collection system. So when someone comes and makes an application, their name and family are going to go into this system, and the people that need the help the most are going to rise to the top of the list, and we're going to take things, and then it goes priority. It's not first come, first serve.
Right.
But then you can go down, and you're not going to be pushed down to the bottom every time.
Yeah.
There's a formula that keeps people and accounts for where people are, and that's one of the efficiencies that we've been able to use by getting our wait list down.
Good.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming in and informing us, but also informing the people who are out watching us.
Thank you.
And your offices are on Creek Road?
54 Creek Road.
Right off to the right after you've turned on to Creek Road?
That's correct. And the other, we have our crisis work that's out of 54 Creek Road, but weatherization and financial futures for financial education and Head Start have different facilities around in the area.
All right.
Yeah.
And I served in the Army for a lot of years with Dwight DeCoster, so if you could tell him I say hi.
I will, Brian. He's been an incredible, well, you know his emergency management
Yeah.
skills, and he was in Weatherization before, so he's starting his 3rd year with us, and we're thrilled.
Yeah, good addition to your organization.
Truly. I have brochures that give our addresses and all of our services, and I brought one of our annual report, which gives the full range of who we are and what we do. I do want to be accountable to you as a select board, and am willing to come back at any time with any questions that you might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dana?
My name is Dana Hart, and I'm the director of the Ilsley Public Library, and I'm here today seeking a public assemblage permit so that the library may serve beer and wine at an event we're having this fall. I don't know how much I have to add to the documentation that was in the packet, but I wanted to be here in case anyone has questions about the event or the process.
Right, are there any questions, the Ilsley Library's assemblage permit
What
request?
kind of wine?
Well, you're invited, so you let me know what you'd like to have there.
I didn't know.
Probably a red and a white.
Okay.
He has no taste, don't worry.
That's for my friends.
So hearing none, the pleasure of the board?
I'll move it, that we approve the public assemblage permit for September 20th for the private event at Ilsley
Second.
To include
for serving beer and wine.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Hope it goes well.
Thank you.
And is Natalie here? Natalie, this one may have more questions. So this is our addition to the agenda, Mr. Mike's cleaning request for public assemblage permit to close a portion of Brookside Drive on Saturday, August 11th from 3 to 9 p.m. for a company neighborhood block party.
Correct.
Want to give us a little bit of details? It wasn't in our packet.
Sure. So Mike has been wanting to have a neighborhood get-together along with a big kind of company celebration. We've been in business for 27 years now, and he's wanted to show appreciation to all of the people that we serve and wanted to have a big get-together. So we have put together to have food and hopefully ice cream. Regular water and soda will be provided by us, but if anybody wants to bring their own beverage, they're more than welcome to. Middlebury PD, Virgins PD, State Police Department will all be there as well because we work at all of their facilities along with different members of the town. So it will be well supervised.
You know,
But-
sometimes that's the worst lot.
This is true. So we would like to, because we're going to work on Mike's property as well as Nick's property, have 2 tents set up with a DJ and food, and to have just from Butt Off until Woodside or Woodland blocked off so that people can cross the street and not have to worry about traffic. That would still allow people to go up and around and not block off anybody that wouldn't be attending's driveway.
Okay. Questions?
So that's where he lives, that's why you're choosing that location?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And it's open to public or just the people you're
If
inviting?
you want to come, you're more than welcome to come.
Okay.
So I'll draw attention to Chief Hanley made a few recommendations. Number one is that they would notify the emergency services so that they're aware that there's a block party going on. Number two, having someone to monitor the barricades in the event of emergency services need to get through. Number three, responsible for the cleanup.
Yep.
And number four, that they would follow the provisions of the noise ordinance that apply to that area for that evening. If there are no questions, then pleasure of the board.
I'm not hogging all the motions. Okay. But I'm happy to do the motion. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. Okay. I move that we approve Mr. Mike's cleaning request to close Brookside Drive from Bought-Off Drive to Woodland Park on Saturday, August 11th from 3 to 9 p.m. for a company neighborhood block party, provided that you follow the provisions that Chief Hanley has indicated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, hope the party goes well.
Thank you.
You are gonna invite Nick, right?
Yeah, he's invited.
The original
Let's see,
date, the original date, he was checking to see if I
library.
was out of town.
Mr. Mike's.
Okay, Fred. So Fred's joining us to review the charge and work product of the Economic Health Committee and then recommend the final appointments to the committee.
Good evening. Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. So your charge gave us some specific issues to focus on. How to retain and attract retail. Is TIF feasible for the downtown? Ideas for using remaining funds that you have, economic development funds. But generally, I think we plan to look at how Middlebury can help small business thrive. What policies, strategies, and tools can a municipality put in place to help launch, grow, and attract small businesses while maintaining the town's distinctive character? We expect the committee to operate as a public body, likely meeting here at least once a month, with homework for the members to do in between. They'll need to do research and writing. We'll start each meeting with a time for public comment, and we expect to hold at least one meeting that'll be fully dedicated to taking public input. I'd like the committee to operate by and make decisions by consensus, but I realize that there may be a rare occasion, like when we go through the final recommendations to give to you in November, that may require a vote. So on June 12th, you appointed Farhad, Mary Cullinane, Stacy Rainey, and myself to the committee with instructions to recruit and recommend 5 other committee members. You gave us some guidance on some of the groups that you'd like to have represented on the committee. So we went through the memberships of all of those groups. That's about 50 people in total. And we considered some other people that we thought might care about the subject. And we ended up contacting about 15 people altogether. We were also contacted directly by a few other folks with interest in the committee. Some combination of the 4 of us communicated or met with everyone that showed interest, and we narrowed it down to the 8 people that are on the list that I sent you. And just to be clear, on the list, there's the 5 people with the asterisk of the people that we are recommending that you appoint, the 5 remaining people that you appoint to the committee. We considered the following when we went through, after we met with everybody and deciding on the 5 people that we are recommending to you. Your charge to include members from certain groups, that they seemed willing and able to work together to directly address the issues that you want the committee to look at that are in the committee charge, and that they came to the table with kind of a broad perspective on the committee's work, including kind of an unbiased, holistic approach to economic and community development and business vitality. And lastly, that we tried to achieve a diversity of age, background, perspective, experience serving on town committees, and a gender balance. So that's how we came to the 5 that we're recommending to you.
Questions of Fred?
So the others that are in the list, there are 8, could potentially be added at another point. So you're just asking us to approve the 5 that you have asterisks next to for tonight, is that correct?
Right, you asked us to name,
Okay.
to recommend 5 more, so we have 9 members on the committee, and those are the
Okay.
5 we're recommending. We've told everybody along the way that if you're not selected, we will have an open process that's going to take public input on several occasions, and we welcome their input to the
Okay.
committee.
And who is your chamber connection?
Karen is on both the
Both, okay.
chamber and on the downtown
Mhm.
Better Middlebury
Okay.
partnership.
Well, thanks, Fred, and all of you who worked on this. I see this, and I look at this list of people, and I see really a very, very good group all around. I see these several people who are basically everybody. They've been active in the Middlebury business community. They continue to do great things. They're employers. They're active in a wide variety of disciplines. And while I look at the list, I have some that I think should be added on there, and there's some changes that should be there. I kind of, in my own mind, have broken this down into 9 principal members, an odd number being to avoid, in the event there isn't a consensus, to avoid a tie. I see an alternate, and I see 2 ad hoc members, and I'll explain why I go through them. First of all, you definitely, Fred, as the chair of this, and Fahad, both as a business owner on the south side of Middlebury and down that direction, plus a member of our board. It's been good. I appreciate both Stacy and Mary being on this, and still, I fully endorse you being members of it. But I think if we look at from a voting perspective, I'm very reluctant to have 2 from the same organization. So my view would be one of you as the principal and one would be the alternate. I would equate that similar to, in the case of Steve Boyce, who I think is an outstanding addition, representing a hospitality side, and has been, he and his wife Danielle have built Flatbread into a very, very strong business, both as a restaurant and a social scene. I wouldn't want a situation where if Danielle equally wanted to be on the committee, we had both Stephen and Danielle having 2 separate votes. So that would be a 1 vote for me. So I would say of the first 4 we discussed, Fred, either Stacy or Mary as a principal, but the other obviously being a participant as an alternate, and then Fahad. I very much like Steve on there, Boyce as, again, representative of the hospitality industry, and sort of younger and middle-aged business owners. Ben Calvi, excellent choice as a manufacturer. In food production and beverage production is manufacturing. He's a large employer and Exchange Street business. Becky Dayton, absolutely, as a traditional retailer in town. Becky has had a long tradition as the owner of the bookstore, also as a landlord, the Downtown Improvement District Commission, very strong. Scott, he's really interesting, and I'm glad to see him on here because he represents what I see as this new, different direction for retail in small towns in this day, in this world of Amazons and all that, where he has a business that appears to be doing quite well, and strikes me as a very innovative person. Mike Capra, I believe, should be on here. If we look back to the retail study that was done when Jamie was here, what was realized is the 2 largest retail products in this area are food and automobiles, vehicles. Mike represents one of the major auto dealers, a repair shop. He's also a large employer. And they came here and made a major investment in the town, put the business here, and again, are a large employer. I believe that they should definitely be on this group. I also feel strongly that John Frieden has a place in it. John, he's been an owner of the buildings. He part owner in Battelle Block, so he's familiar with the real estate side of town. He has a connection from being in the legislature. He started a very, very strong business and has done well. John is the one who will sometimes challenge conventional thought, and that's not a bad thing to move forward. So with that group, that creates the 9. Go back to Fahad, you, Mary or Stacy as a principal, the other as an alternate, Steve, Ben, Mike, Becky Dayton, John, and Scott, and then having ad hoc both the role of Jennifer Murray, who was very important on the planning and zoning connection, and then of course Karen with the chamber. All would be expected to be active participants, but I think that gives a broader balance in terms of the types of businesses, the types of employers, the age demographics. I mean, that seems very complete to me and would be, in my mind, a very strong group.
Just let me just clarify, you're saying basically that everybody would be on the committee in one role or another?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
They've all expressed a strong interest and all have something solid to add to it. But to avoid making it too, extremely large, have 9 principals, 1 alternate, and 2 ad hoc. And they all have a good element to contribute.
Could you clarify what you mean by ad hoc?
Ad hoc
Like
would-
ex
they would
officio?
be part, yes, that's exactly, yeah. So they wouldn't be a voting member, but they would be active participants.
I know that we were trying to keep it nimble in the beginning too, so I can see that you're thinking about that, and I don't know, Mary and Stacy, how you're thinking about this too in terms of the numbers. I mean, I see the same point that Nick does about the qualifications of each of those candidates, so I'm just trying to work through that, like how do we be nimble in the first steps that we have to take with this committee and allow people to have input. And you just said that there'd be some public meetings or process, so people would be invited to give direction or input, as they have for other visioning sessions we've had in the town. So, I don't know, I'm still mulling it, and
I would concur with Nick's suggestion. I assume, I mean, there's a policy committee that's going to, I don't see that, that in terms of doing the business that we've asked you to do, that you're going to have moments where you're going to have a cliffhanger vote one way or the other. It's more of a matter of talking through policy and coming up with something that seems like work. And but I, with Nick, also feel the I have no quarrel with anyone on this list. I mean, it seems to me it's a fine list, and I'm glad that everyone is here, and I can see the different contributions that they make. I do have some, and I should have been, let's say, more alert earlier on. I don't think it's possible, it's not proper to have, I'm sorry, 2 members, 2 persons who run a single business, voting members of a town committee. It just is not, it's like having 2 members of the same family. I mean, I think that, so I would think that in that instance, it would be a matter of you choosing which one, and which doesn't exclude the other. I mean, these are open meetings. It isn't the fact that you say, well, you're not an official member of the committee, you can't attend, you can't get your 2 cents in. This is, the open meeting law prevents that, and would go on. But I think, especially, and I can see, I have a certain warmth for John Frieden because I rode 100 miles on a bicycle one day about, I don't know, 40 years ago, whenever it was, far in the past. And really, John invented the bicycle touring industry in Vermont. And so he has a fairly, I think, good record
Yeah, I think
for
he'd be really important.
entrepreneurial skill. And he stuck with it. So I was rather sorry to see him off. I think Jennifer is important, at least ex officio, because she's our town planning officer. And a lot of this really cuts across town planning, not to have our town planner present. And seems to me it's just the wrong way to go. I mean, I think that she needs I mean, by her office, she's enfranchised, and I would say that she ought to be present ex officio. I could listen, as I say, I rather like the whole list, and I'm not. I don't see that this has to be a sort of a tiny committee where we're asking you to work out something very technical. This is a matter of thinking broadly, and it seems to me this group is suited for that.
Did you have anything first?
No, I'm good. I spoke to Fred today, so there was sort of like a misunderstanding earlier on when Fred sent me the list on Friday, and I think I had like less than an hour to look at it, and I misunderstood. I thought it was worded differently in my opinion, and I thought, without going into the detail, my thinking is John Frieden and Mike Carper were the first ones to approach us. They showed interest, and I know the wealth of experience that John brings to the table, and Mike, like you said, is a major employee in the town, so that's why I was leaning towards them. But I wasn't fully aware of the recommended candidates. Somehow I spoke to you and I thought it was okay, but and I told them that I'm going to reserve my comments today because I wasn't prepared to comment.
I just want to be clear that everybody on here expressed interest one way or another. That's why they're on here.
Yep.
There was never any intention that Jennifer would not be permitted to participate in our deliberations or whatever, our meetings or whatever. You asked us to find and recruit 5 more people, and that's what we did. And the process is a little mystifying to me because at the June 12th meeting, you chose Stacy and Mary to be on the committee. They didn't choose it.
No,
They expressed interest earlier.
Right.
And you chose them to be on the committee as individuals. And they worked with me and Farhad to find and recruit people and interview them and find out who was interested. It's just a bit odd that now they're being told that one of them can't be on the committee or can't be a voting member on the committee. So I just need to express that concern to you that you took that action in June, and now you're, I guess, reversing that. But I like everybody on here. That's why we talked to them, and I thought everybody had great ideas. We thought that these 5 were the ones that kind of fit that profile that I explained earlier.
Well, Fred, I have to say, I apologize. I simply was not alert enough for various reasons, which I won't go into. And I should have seen this at the beginning. I'm aware that you're quite right, that to a certain extent we're asking you to do something different from, we're giving you a different sort of conclusion as to what we gave you at a previous select board meeting, and, but I mean, my feeling is that I should have caught this earlier, and I think, just as a general principle, that when you're forming committee, that you don't, I mean, you want it to be, in that sense, broad and not sort of what it appears to do favoring someone, and I don't think we should do that.
Could I speak to it? I've seen both Mary and Stacy very involved in the work that we've been doing over the last couple of months, and they've been very vigilant about both of them attending many town meetings and really getting to know the work of our town. And I know that they're from the same business, but they are two different people, and they're both really valuable, you know, so we'll have an opportunity to phase committee members in and out as we go. This is not the end, you know, like, but because they've both already invested so much time, maybe we should consider retaining both of them at this time. You know, I know that the conflict you're mentioning, but I think that they've already invested quite a bit of energy, both of them, you know, into thinking about our economic health future. So I'd like to honor what you're saying, Fred, you know, and that still leaves us with a dilemma of winnowing this down, you know, for the first round, and, you know, and how to say what to the others that have expressed interest. Thank you, and you know, there'll be a place for you. But, you know, we have to be nimble in the beginning in terms of the next steps that we're trying to take with the Economic Health Committee. Okay, I don't know, I do like John on the committee, but I don't know who to surrender in order to bring John onto the committee, because I do think that he provides a really important background, you know, for a lot of the reasons that Nick already expressed. Plus, he knows about the EDI development. He knows about the library expand. He knows how to raise capital. I mean, he just brings a lot to the discussion. So, because these others have already said yes, I don't know how you say, well, we're not going to have you now. So I'm not sure how to resolve that.
Well, you know, and I'm sitting there, and I want to echo, you know, Victor's, sorry the way this came through, and after thinking about this more, I did express, but obviously I didn't say it strong enough, about the idea of two people from the same organization. Again, that, well, both of you I know are talented, are credible, will be good contributors. It's just this voting concept of two from the same organization that really makes me uneasy. And so I expect you'll both be participants and continue as such. It's just that one of you has to decide who's going to be the principal and who's the alternate, and it doesn't matter to me as long as that's clear. I also don't want to give up one of these people that's on this list for the reasons I've explained. I think it's a really good broad balance of employers, of sizes of employers, of what they've done, and of what they're hoping to do. And so I don't want to remove any of those that I've already expressed a support for. So I personally think the way to move forward, and it's actually the second issue on this, would be to make a motion to outline 9 members as principals, and 1 as an alternate, and 2 as ex officio. Yeah, but that's the second item on the list, so if we do it in the sequence that we want to do, that would have to wait. The first item would be anything else we want to do to change the charge. And I just have one suggestion on that. And that would be to determine what Middlebury government can do to enhance the business experience in Middlebury. Leaving it, you know, Victor had mentioned the importance of having Jen planning, representing both the planning and zoning, and then of course the planning commission, very critical. What are the things that we do well in Middlebury, and what are the things we can do better? And we don't do everything perfect, but we could, or it'd be a lot more perfect. So I would like that to be an addition to the charge.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. How long are these appointments for?
We're to report back to you in November, so I assume
This is
it
a
ends
short
then.
term.
I mean, this is short-term.
Mhm.
I'm in favor of doing it the way that you've laid out. I think you've already put in the work, and I think we should honor the work that you've already done to get this off the ground, and the legwork that you've done, and I'm sure like a million conversations. This is just through November, and then we'll be appointing new people again. And I'll also say, I don't like the idea of shaving off 2 voting members who are women from a committee that only has 4 women. To me, it seems like this is just through November. You've put in the work to get it off the ground. Let's honor that. And let's go forward with the way you have it laid out. And in November, we can make some adjustments. November's not very far away.
But I don't like the idea of leaving 2 of the members who came forward, volunteered their time to us. I don't want to leave them off either.
Can we have alternates? I mean, I like the idea of having, I mean, of the people I know on this list, which is most people.
We're not appointing this committee until November. They're going to make a report, but obviously, as I see this, this is an open-ended committee, and when you appoint a committee and you set it to a task, I think it's best to have the people who are going to participate in making the recommendations there for the beginning, not somehow reconstituting a different committee later on. So I think that it's probably wiser to set the committee as we believe it would be best constituted, and just turn it loose. And yes, there will be initial reports, but it seems to me you'll be more than likely to say, yes, we thank you for that report, we have some questions, but there's also some other things, and I think this is an ongoing thing. This is I don't see it as a short-term project. I think it's one of the most important things we're doing. The economic health of the town of Middlebury, wouldn't necessarily say it's fundamental. I'd rather think maybe it's the moral health, but it's very important, and it creates jobs. The reasons why people come to live here. It provides money from the town in terms of taxes. I mean, it does so much that's important that I don't see that this is a task that's going to be settled in a few months, and that it's best to have the committee constituted and start from the beginning and just go on indefinitely, until it's clear that its recommendations are complete.
That's not the way we do our other town committees.
Wait a second, let me-
Okay.
Heather
Okay.
wanted to.
Yeah.
So can we take a minute and clarify, because I think we have 2 different answers.
Right, about the length.
Victor's indicating that this is a longer-term appointment, and Lindsay's question was kind of a shorter term. And Fred, what's your understanding, and what, the people that have volunteered for this, what have you told them? Because that may, if we are really intending for this to be a longer-term commitment, maybe that might change some people's interest, if it was explained that it was a shorter-term commitment.
That's possible. I mean, originally, I think that we were to report back to you in like September or something, and I got it extended to November.
Yeah.
And part of the reporting back is, in the charge, it says the committee's recommendations to the board will outline how the effort will be sustained by a committee, I assume the same or another committee,
Yeah.
staff and/or a combination thereof. So part of the recommendation back to you, I think, is how do you sustain, and I think our recommendations are gonna be so brilliant that you'll be done. We hope. So I thought it was till November, and I told the people that, everybody that we talked to, that it's a short-term commitment. That we have to report back to the select board in November.
So,
Let's agree.
I think we maybe first should clarify that among us, because I think Victor's thinking something different than what
Yeah.
Fred thought our initial charge was.
Well, and frankly, Fred doesn't just think it, that was our initial charge. And I think just to try to clarify a few things, this was our effort to restart economic development activities within the town of Middlebury from the governance point of view. And how can the town government help pull some of this together and provide opportunities? And so we, in building upon your committee's work, which disbanded with providing us the recommendations, there's a couple of those recommendations that we've charged this committee to how do we do. One of them was establishing the fund, the revolving fund. And so this committee would then review all these things and report out to us. I do not think this is a terminus event where we will never continue on, but we would then, if we decide there may be subcommittees that look at particular areas, or we may create a committee that goes on indefinitely, but that would be a new establishment in my mind. Because this committee was formed with a particular task, with specific due outs to the select board, and Fred volunteered for that. I don't think Fred volunteered to work for specifically the town of Middlebury's efforts. He's got I don't know as though he'd have stepped up to chair this committee if he knew it was an enduring committee. So in fairness to Fred and in fairness to the committees, they have a particular charge, and I think we need to abide by what we charged them with in that original discussion. I am hearing everything that we're saying, and I agree. It's probably poor policy to have two family members, two people from the same business on one committee. That said, we made a commitment on June 12th, and I don't feel good about, from my vote, pulling somebody off that we've already voted on. I think that was probably an oversight on all of our parts, and I think it's something that we should take as a learning lesson. But with the fact that they were the first ones to step forward when we had been looking for over a year and a half to try to get, or a year to get volunteers, and they stepped forward, and probably a lot of the energy behind creating the momentum that this committee is bringing to us. I can't vote to pull one of them off from at this time. I think as we go forward, if we create another committee, that might be something, and frankly, that ought to be something we're all cognizant of going forward, if that is our feelings and desire, and not to do that again. But I don't feel good pulling them off from that. So as we discuss the committee, I think we've made we have a motion that we all approved, and I feel like we owe it to live with our original decision.
Right. And Nick wasn't suggesting pulling them off. He was giving them different weight, but you're saying, let's continue to give them the same weight because that was their understanding when they got involved in this initiative, which I think I would want to honor right now, too.
They've been working on the committee
Yeah.
for a month and a half or
Mhm.
whatever, whenever we started, June
And that-
12th to now.
Yeah, and back to Heather's question again, that we agree as a select board on what the time length is for the commitment. And I think, are we in agreement that it's November?
I'm sitting here thinking a couple of things, and First of all, there's not gonna be any difference as far as weight. It's just that in a voting scenario, the idea two from the same organization is, honestly, that doesn't seem right to me. As far as the time, you're absolutely right. It is, what we agreed to is something for this one task. The aspect of economic development and health for Middlebury should be an ongoing thing ad infinitum. There will be different groups coming in, there will be different tasks that need to be done. This is setting the stage for what goes on forward. This is a holistic, broad discussion, which is why I think it's important that we have a broad array of people who represent a number of different segments: industrial, large employers, small employers, retail, hospitality. These are all key segments. And somebody with some real estate as well in there, to look at what we do well and what we don't do well. And then there will be subsequent groups, committees taken off to deal with each of these tasks as we have it. I mean, I can envision a situation where we spotlight items that town governance doesn't do well, and we have a group that deals with that, and it, you know, have our manager as participant in that, as different department heads, and some of us and members from the outside. So this is a fundamental set of the stage through November, thereabouts, as we had agreed to, for the long-term continued economic health efforts of this town. And I say, when I look at the group we have here, and I think we've really got a good, strong group that covers everything, or a large number of everything.
So just a couple of comments that I am struggling with a little bit. So the Economic Health Task Force was a big group, a very diverse group, that we had a large, we had like 14 people, and we tried to capture people from a lot of different, and we came up with recommendations. And I feel a little bit like what we're asking this group to do is a repeat of what that group did already. And so I'm struggling with that a little bit, because one of the recommendations that that group made was that we had an ongoing committee, which we tried to put together, and we couldn't find group, and it seems people are more interested in a short-term commitment than a longer-term commitment, which I completely understand. But some of like what Nick's suggestion for an additional charge for this group, I feel like is more what we would ask the long-term committee to do and not the short-term committee. What I had originally envisioned and thought this group was gonna do was work out some of the specifics of the original task force recommendation. So the TIF district, specifically, how does that go forward? The revolving loan fund, is there a way to utilize that money to make that happen? Like very specific tasks, and not a broad, I'm not saying that what you mentioned is a needing to happen. What did you say? The long-term health. I'm not disagreeing that doesn't need to happen, but I see that as being a charge of a long-term committee and not the short-term committee. So I'm struggling a little bit with the charge and what this group is gonna do in a short amount of time by November. So even before or after we do membership, I wanna make sure we're all on the same page on specifically what they're doing and what they're doing in that short term.
So let me read the charge,
Yeah,
just as a starting point for that conversation.
I've read it.
Okay.
several
That
times.
it's supposed to start from the Economic Health Task Force recommendations as the starting point, and then to recommend several economic development tools that the town can use with limited resources and staff.
so I don't want to waste people's, unless the select board does not agree with what the original task force came up with, which is fine. And we could say that they didn't accept, but I thought the select boards accepted the recommendations. But if they don't, then that's fine, and we want a new committee to make new recommendations, that's fine. But what I hoped was that they would take what we had originally recommended and take it further.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. But some of what I hear is not, anyway.
That's my understanding too, and I think that's your understanding. So, should we try to make a motion?
I'm
Well,
open
I'd be
to,
willing to make one on the committee makeup, but if somebody else wants to add something to the charge, if they want to change anything in the charge, be open to listen to that. So it doesn't matter what sequence you have it. We have it listed so the charge is done first and then the committee makeup.
I think regardless of whether it's a long-term or short-term, we still have to deal with, are we going to agree on these two members as an ad hoc? And are we going to agree as one of the alternate, regardless whether it's a long-term or short-term? We still have to solve that, right, that discussion?
Right.
I mean, as I said before, I'd like to accept the recommendations as they've been laid out by the people who have already done the work. And the other people who expressed interest, who are all very qualified, I'd like to see come on as something like an alternate, or, something so that they can participate and be heard and contribute. And should the committee extend beyond November, they will be in a position to know what's going on, and if there are any offshoots or whatever, they're in there, they can jump in.
Was that a motion?
would you like to make a recommendation that they be alternates and that you have the two that are from the government bodies be ex officio members?
Sure. Where is that? Well, I will make a motion to accept the recommendation for the Middlebury Economic Health Committee appointments as laid out, with who's going to be the alternates? Mike Capra and John Frieden? as
If
alternates?
you're accepting their recommendation, those two could be added as alternates?
Added as alternates, and then I'm putting Jennifer Murray as ex officio.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I'll second. Were you done? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's
I
it.
don't think I understood that motion. Can you, Brian?
So you're
Would you like,
recommending, your motion is to go with the committee's
Recommendation
recommendation.
for
In
appoint.
addition, making John Frieden and Mark Capra, or Mike or Mark?
Mike.
Mike Capra,
Alternates.
alternates, and Jennifer Murray and ex officio,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Does that clear it up? Cara?
Yeah.
As mud?
That's
I can live with that. Yeah. Mhm.
is it workable? No?
But that's, make the motion.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye. No.
2.
So we have 5-2. So,
Where'd you go from?
No.
oh, you voted no?
4-3.
4-3? And as far as the charge, is there anything we want to change on the charge?
No.
I think more importantly, Fred, do you feel like you know what the charge is, and Do you have any need for clarification on the charge?
No, if it's as written as you wrote it and approved it in June, I think we are clear. One question I do have, though, is what is the role of an alternate on the
They
committee?
should be at the meetings. They would be a non-voting member unless there was somebody absent from the meeting, in which case we should probably have a first and then a second alternate.
Well, the way I always know an alternate in any committee I've been on is you've got the principal, and if the principal isn't there, the alternate votes. So now in the case of this, if we're just letting them as, the term for at large, alternate, they would vote if any principal is not there. But then, as you say, you have to have you have to define a first and a second position. I don't personally want to put anybody in.
Okay,
Did we define that?
We should.
we should. Did they come to us in any particular order?
If you want to go by order, I know Mike Capra sent me a note
Mhm.
the day after our meeting here, so.
I think John Frieden called me that day too,
Yeah.
so I don't know that we can,
Yeah,
somebody flip a coin.
Well, I would suggest John is the first and Mike is the second alternate then.
is there a second? Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
I'm just abstaining.
Abstaining? So,
One abstention.
3
Three
abstentions.
abstentions.
As far as the charge of the committee, are we good with the charge of the committee? Or did you want to, yeah, look further down.
So, I know that Kathleen had done some work on the town manager criteria for the Economic Health Committee. Is there anything we need to consider
There's nothing.
as far as the funnel and your, okay.
Okay.
Thank you for holding us accountable.
Yeah. I think if Fred is comfortable with the original charge, then
So
I think it's a big task
I-
for.
I think that's enough.
The big
Mhm.
task, the one thing I look at, the lead-off item, and I'm not gonna propose a change right now, but it's retaining, expanding retail opportunities. Well, we have somebody who's in the hospitality business, so that's different. And we have somebody on here, who's in the industrial business,
And then,
so they're kind of being left out.
What's your point? I'm sorry.
Well, we have two people who are not in the expanding on the retail side of it. That's not their expertise,
Uh-huh.
it's really, it's additional businesses.
Mhm.
So, who are you saying is left out?
Well, we have somebody who's a manufacturer. Expanding retail is not their prime. Their prime interest is expanding manufacturing opportunities, presumably. And then the other is a hospitality, so it's expanding hospitality opportunities.
Well, you-
Scott and Becky are both in
Yeah, that's
retail.
what I was
We
thinking.
certainly have strong retail, we do. I mean, but there's this other, which the charge doesn't really make mention of expanding their opportunities. And maybe we'll just leave it the way it is for now, but this is just
Oh,
kind
I
of
see
an
what you're
extension of the ongoing concerns I've had as I've looked at this.
Well, still go back to the original task force recommendation that there be a regular committee, and I think one of the hopes of that regular meeting, like quarterly committee, is in some kind of evaluation regularly of the economic conditions of the town. Identifying data and monitoring that data so that as things naturally, ebb and flow, we can respond quicker as a town in any area that might alleviate some degree of that natural ebb and flow. And
That's a huge charge, though, and we
Yes.
haven't been.
yes, and I didn't think we were there yet, but at some point, I hope that we might, get there, so. And I think as one industry is experiencing an up, but other industry is experiencing a down, and, how do you balance that across all, I don't know, but it's definitely a work in progress. And I can guarantee in 10 years, we can go back and say, well, we should have done that differently.
Or some of that different. Not all, some of it.
So you were saying retail is mentioned, but the others are not.
Retail's mentioned,
So maybe
but
just change it
there's
to
no mention
business
before.
opportunities instead of
Yeah.
targeting retail.
Oh, that's where you, okay.
Yeah.
I think we weren't tracking.
Retaining, expanding business opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess we look forward to, I would suggest if you, as the committee progresses, if you have questions, just let us know.
Mhm. Okay.
You're on a fairly tight timeline, so if you need, check in with the select board at any point, we'll make it a priority to get that done.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you, Fred. Purpose Energy. Sorry to run your legal bill up. Extra half hour of Evan, huh? How you doing tonight?
Good. Are we good to go?
We're good to go.
All right. So my name is Eric Fitch. I'm the founder of a small business called Purpose Energy that would like to locate a facility here in Middlebury. I think most of you probably know Council Eben Punderson, who's local. He's representing us in a process, a certificate of public good, or Act 248J, which is a state permit that we'll be required to have. I think there was a slide deck that was distributed beforehand, and I hope you had a chance to review that. Going through it and giving you an oratory. But I will give you the cliff notes just to make sure we're kind of on the same page. We have been looking at trying to develop a project in Middlebury for a lot of years. And the obvious reason is there's a nice industrial park with good real estate available, and you've got a couple of manufacturers here that generate a lot of organic byproducts in their manufacturing process, specifically Agrimark and Otter Creek. The high-strength waste that they generate is something that you wouldn't normally try to treat at a municipal wastewater treatment plant because it's a different kind of process. It's an aerobic process, and it's expensive to treat organic waste. There's another kind of process that's anaerobic that doesn't incur the same expenses, and in addition, it generates renewable energy. We have a very similar facility in South Burlington. We've been operating since 2010. It's in the backyard of Magic Hat. If you've been to the Magic Hat Brewery, you've probably seen it. There's a big brown tank in the backyard that is owned and operated by my company, Purpose Energy. We take waste from the brewery, all the brewery's waste, in fact, plus over the years, we've taken waste from Stonyfield Farms, from both the Ben & Jerry's operations, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, even the town of Middlebury at one time when there was a spill on the industrial park. So we want to locate a very similar facility at 183 Industrial Avenue, which is Mr. Neri's property. We have a long-term lease, a 22-year lease on that site. We've been awarded recently a contract by the state of Vermont under a program called the Speed Standard Offer. This is a feed-in tariff where the state agrees to pay a certain amount for renewable power, and they have different rates that they'll pay for large-scale wind, small-scale wind, agricultural anaerobic digestion, and most recently, they have a category called food waste digesters. And this kind of goes with the state's intention to eliminate organic waste from landfills and try to do something a little bit more effective with them. Our plan is to take materials from Agrimark, from Otter Creek, from the cider manufacturer, from the kombucha manufacturer, from a few distilleries that are local, and process them in our anaerobic digester, convert that organic material into renewable power that we'll sell to the grid. We'll also generate treated water, which we would discharge to Middlebury under pre-treatment discharge permit that would have to be granted by the town and by the Agency of Natural Resources. We'll produce an organic material that can be used as a land application. In South Burlington, we have from the state an acceptable use determination to put this on row crops. Here we would work with the Foster Brothers Farm in Moodoo and just have this material transport to them. The fact that we're going to connect to the grid requires us to get this Section 248 Certificate of Public Good. It's a 6-month process for a permit, roughly 6 months. And that's through the Public Utilities Commission. And I'll be speaking a little bit out of turn on the next part, but part of the CPG process could be preceded by a notice period to the town and to the Regional Planning Commission. That's a 45-day period. So that brings us to why we're here today. We're here for 2 reasons. One is, if we're going to be here for over 20 years with this contract that we're getting from the state, we want to establish a relationship with the town. We want to make sure that you guys feel like we're approachable, and you can call or email or talk to us at any time. And we would like to ask for your consideration in waiving that 45-day period. It wouldn't waive any of the town's rights under the Certificate of Public Good process, but what it will help us do is take 45 days off of our critical path, which can be important for us if we want to try to get to the point where we start construction when the thaw comes in the spring. So I think that kind of ends my oratory. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So it strikes me, actually, as I look at this, I like this in a sense. This is the type of renewable that strikes me as actually a reliable renewable. What I mean is it's available across the board. It's not suddenly impacted by a cloud that comes over or a loss of wind.
Yes, sir. We call that base power.
That's exactly what strikes me, because it's often the thing that I find, I don't know if I've ever had a clear answer on how wind and solar ties into the grid, because the power company still has to deliver base power, which means if the wind stops blowing, they've got to get the power from someplace, whereas it strikes me what you're doing is it's reliable base power.
It's true. So we're going to make making power as often as the cows make milk.
Yeah, or the beetles are from the apples, or what have you. So is it a digester to methane to
Electricity and heat, yes, sir.
electricity generation system?
Yeah, so we'll put in a system, it's a Guascor engine
Okay,
that turns a generator.
okay.
The generator is going to be 1,014 kilowatts, so just over a megawatt, which is a pretty good sized digester project.
Yeah, that is.
For reference, the one we have in South Burlington is 300 kilowatts. We built another one in Delaware that was 800 kilowatts, so this is a good sized project. We're also going to make thermal energy. We haven't quite figured out the best use for our thermal energy yet, but there's going to be about an equivalent amount. The facility, it's next door to a soap plant that uses around like 100 horsepower of boiler steam. I think right now they're using natural gas, but at times they've used propane. We can replace his fossil fuel with some renewable thermal energy. But we'll certainly over the years be looking for other opportunities to beneficially use the thermal energy. That answer your question?
Yeah, it does. No, I read a little bit on these, just as I try to understand more and more through the last few years of what energy is and how it's generated and used, and these things, I mean, I've seen sort of concepts on dairy farms, and you're really taking it and expanding it out and taking those customers that, in my mind, don't have enough product to justify their own unit, but using that and running something reliable. no, this is very interesting to me, and I'm for it.
Thank you.
Evan, a couple questions for you. So this isn't precedent setting, this has been used as a way to speed up a project because in the past that you've dealt with, and effectively that 45 days advance was to give us an opportunity to look at something before it ever went out to the CPG process, but we would still then be involved in the CPG process?
Yep. I believe the requirement is in there just so that towns can, it supersedes the zoning. So sometimes towns get left out of feel like they're left out of the process.
Yeah,
I think the intention is to ensure that the municipality in which these are located has early warning that it's coming. And where projects that have some controversy attached to them, I think that's really important. Projects like this that, I don't want to have you prejudge it, but they're very non-controversial. The facility itself is going to be a fairly small scale type of thing. But yeah, the requirement is still there, and it is not in any way a waiver of the town's right to participate once the petition is filed. But when we file the petition, we're going to have to certify that either we have provided an advance form of the petition itself, the permit application itself to the town, or the town has affirmatively waived that. So what we'd like to do is when we file it with a letter from the town which says we waive the 45-day requirement, but the town will still be able to participate if it needs to. And we fully intend that as soon as we have something that's more concrete in terms of what will actually go into the permit application, which will be visuals of the facility itself, site plans, a lot more specifics.
yeah.
We'll provide that to the town as early as we can, just so that if there is anything the town wants to flag to start thinking about once the petition is there, they'll be prepared to do so. I'm anticipating also that as part of the petition, it's always nice to have a letter from the municipality which says not only have we waived the 45-day requirement, but based on what we've seen, we support this project. That's just another little add-on that we may come back to the town formally to request at some point before we actually file the petition. And it's not unprecedented. I noticed in the petition that was submitted for the Magic Hat, the town of South Burlington waived its 45-day notice. And so I think the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission did as well. So we still have to go to that as a county regional planning commission.
Yeah.
So it really just makes our job easier, just rather than having a deadline of sometime in early September, our deadline would be like today, to have
Yeah.
something that's relatively complete that you guys could sign off on as part of the.
And you're fully intending to keep us in the loop on that as your plan goes forward.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the things I think that the select board and the town will be interested in hearing is the impact on our wastewater.
Yes.
It's something that we've been working and watching our load, and it, as a requirement, the requirements that are being put on our wastewater system now from those particular
Facilities.
producers that you're talking about are going to require us to invest heavily in our wastewater system, and I think we would be looking at how does that impact or maybe alleviate some of the more emergent needs of our system, and so some of that data would be important as you come forward with the further information in the future.
I can comment on that a little bit. We had a previous meeting and Bob Wells was present. We discussed the constraints, and the constraints seem to be more from an organic load than from hydraulic load.
Right.
We're going to alleviate a lot of the organic load. right now, the brewery discharges 20-some thousand gallons a day at maybe 8,000 milligrams per liter. We're going to reduce that to below 100 milligrams per liter. So that, as far as the total load going to the system, we're going to, the organic load, we're going to dramatically reduce it. Now, hydraulically, the material that we'll be taking from Agrimark is not what's going to the wastewater plant already. It's going to be material that they're trucking off-site and land applying or putting in manure pits. Instead of trucking that off-site, we'd like to pipe it. So we'll eliminate some trucking. But that will add on the order of 20,000 gallons a day of hydraulic load to the town, which at this point doesn't seem to be a constraint.
Right, so I mean, that analysis and then the feedback that Bob Wells would bring to us on the select board is gonna be important as we go into the CPG process.
Yeah, another constraint, or another issue that is gonna come up is how do we get a pipe from Otter Creek and Agrimark to 183 Industrial? And in fact, there might be two pipes. We tried hard to put the facility right on the Agrimark property, but because they're a co-op, that made it really challenging for us to locate on their site. So we ended up being by car, at least on the road, almost a mile away. We had to figure out how to get the material. One option would be to truck it back and forth, but that turns into a lot of short distance trucking in the industrial park. A better solution would be to pump it. Pumping from an environmental standpoint is much better, and from a cost standpoint is way better. But the challenge is there's a new water main that's projected sometime in the future, and we have to make sure if we were to put a waste line through there, we wouldn't go where the future water might be because there's a certain setback. We've been working with, I'm trying to think of the engineering firm. Du Bois and King on some preliminary proposals on how we can pipe the material. That just hasn't been resolved yet. It's admittedly an issue that we're going to have to be confronted with.
So you're looking at the piping, the best route appears to be along the public right of way.
I think so. We looked at a few things. We looked at trying to go across private property.
Right.
And the owners of the private property are not very excited about that. We looked at trying to run down the railway, which is possible. We looked at trying to cross under the railway and then back, which is also possible. Those were considerably higher cost based on Du Bois King's estimates. The best solution was, let's see if I can get these streets right, but Exchange Street to Manelli. And then is there another street between Manelli and Industrial?
Pond, yeah.
You come out, you would exit Pond Lane and then go up into Industrial Avenue and then turn. I think Du Bois and King is looking at proposed light being on direct shot from 183 Industrial Avenue, right, and direct shot to Agrimark, getting permission from Carrera to cross that 20-foot right-of-way that he has, which would have been connected to a railroad for this someday. And that's what it was planned originally. And if you could pull off the direct shot, you could pick up and also by coming across KC Warning property. And I went down and had a talk with them. I don't know, we're still talking. But as far as the other property owners, they're all in favor.
Obviously, the reason I raised the question, and it's just because we have this upcoming water project, is would the timing be such that, we optimize construction and maybe share some of that cost? If we have construction crews already in Exchange Street putting in pipe,
Yeah.
you just make a second hole,
Yeah, I
the
don't-
machines are there
I
bigger.
don't think the timing, they're looking to go
Right
faster
away.
than
Well,
we're ready.
Faster.
and maybe there's a temporary solution. Maybe the temporary is trucking it, and then the long term is this pipe. So, but that's all technical details to think about. You've got a good engineering firm working on it, and obviously, you know what some of the projects coming along for us. I think it's a great idea. The one question I would have, and Councilor Punderson, you mentioned the aspect of a letter coming from the town. I guess Kathleen, maybe I'd ask you the question is, how do we do that? Or what would we do?
There's a draft in your packet.
That's something that I didn't see.
Yeah,
Okay.
of a letter. This letter does not say anything about the merits of the application. It just waives the 45-day notice period. And Evans said that they may come back asking for an endorsement later in the process.
Yeah, I think we would be looking for some more of that other data at that point
Right.
to make sure that
Oh, yeah.
we're not gonna be an interested party that's not supportive of it. So I think in spirit, we're all in favor of anything that reduces waste and puts it to better utilization. And it's been the things that we've worked on for a number of years. And I personally wouldn't have any problem with waiving the 45 days, but I do think before we would provide a letter of support, we would want to know more of the specific details of how that impacts the town and those of other parties and what their feelings are along that path that you're proposing to put the pipeline in, so that we're not lobbying against, the tide.
So we've started the process of the 20-year evaluation on our wastewater
Yeah,
treatment
That's what I was,
facility.
mhm.
And so this may have an impact on that and would just, in addition to talking with Bob Wells, also meet with the firm that's doing that works, or at least provide them with the information, so that can be considered in that, because we're already started that process, so I'm assuming this proposal would have an impact on the results of that.
Oh, I'm guessing that's, yeah, which is why I brought that up, because
I'm glad you
we
brought that up.
voted to fund that study, so.
Okay.
Now, that's a huge issue. I'm glad
Who's
you
the
brought
firm?
Tata and Howard
Yep.
out of St.
Tatum and
Johnsbury.
Tatum?
Tata.
TATA
TATA
and Howard.
and Howard.
Would you like us to contact them and make them aware of our project and see if they can
Yeah,
incorporate
I'm
this
happy to
into-
provide you the contact information for them. I'll shoot you an email.
Okay.
So let's say it wouldn't hurt.
I think it would be appropriate, because it would give us, if your project has a high likelihood of proceeding, it gives us more accurate data as we analyze what our future needs are. So, I mean, for them to know what the future is in that industrial park is really important.
Okay.
Ross?
Thank you. Just a point that may be of interest to the select board. I spoke with Adam Luigi as your regional planning commissioner delegate. I spoke with Adam Luigi, and he told me that he met with the executive committee recently, and they discussed this request, and they're turning it down. They felt, according to Adam, that without the application in hand, it's really hard to decide whether it's appropriate to waive the 45-day notice. I think that he told us that the executive committee of the Regional Planning Commission voted against the idea of doing this. Not that it doesn't sound like a great plan, but the devil's in the details, as you are pointing out, and without the application, it's hard to know. So I'm just sharing that for what it's worth. He also felt that, according to him, they wanted to get their application in by October, and to meet the 45-day notice, that means they've got still till August 15th. So there's still time, they got 2 weeks, and he's expecting, like most applicants, they get it together and they get it in 45 days, within the time they want. It's not it does happen, sometimes people do waive them, but usually, I know all the applications that come through in the 7 years or so I've been involved, I've never heard of them being waived locally. So that was some of their thinking that Adam shared.
Are you familiar with any of it?
Yeah, the way I understood how Adam responded to me was based on the information that I provided a few weeks ago, which is the same information I provided to the town, that they weren't inclined to, but with further information, maybe, but either way, it's okay. I mean, and they have, with farm projects, there have been waivers in the past, but it's okay. It doesn't matter to this board's decision. I mean, although if we're gonna have to do it for them, we're gonna have to do it we'll do it for the town anyway. So whatever we put together, whenever we put it together, our intent is to distribute it to you, along with the Regional Planning Commission, obviously.
Can I ask a procedure question? So, can this be considered the start of the 40-day notice, or do we have to have the specific permit? We have to have the.
It's actually less than the specific permit. I've always thought of it as having the whole application together. The actual rule just says the petitioner shall submit plans for construction to the affected municipal and regional planning commission.
So we have to, so the 45 days can't start until we have like a site plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we would give that to you on day one, and then we would have to wait that 45 days before we could file it with the PUC. So, I mean, it's not a huge hurdle, it just means we'll do a little scrambling to make it happen.
I guess I'm not, personally, I'm okay with waiving it. I think I would agree with what Brian said earlier, before the letter of support, I would need more detail, but I'm okay with waiving the 45-day.
Yeah.
That's my opinion at this time.
I'm there.
Would anybody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the Purpose Energy's request for a waiver of the 45-day pre-filing notification requirement to the town prior to submitting its application for a certificate of public good to the Public Utilities Commission for its proposed waste-to-energy facility on Industrial Avenue.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments?
I'm glad to know about the project. You did a very good job of explaining it. And I think it's important to move in that direction. And I hope that our wastewater treatment facility also gets to appreciate that kind of technology. So I just wanted to say that.
It's a vote of confidence. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Did you apply for the phosphorus challenge as well?
Yes, sir. We did. We applied for developing 2 different technologies at our South Burlington facility.
Yep. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Please keep us in the loop, and I think you've got some of the questions that we would be interested in, knowing more about as your plans proceed.
Thank you all very much.
Good luck.
Kathleen?
Okay.
So this is the same resolution that you acted on earlier this summer, as this is for the wastewater treatment facility. A notice that we intend to reimburse ourselves for the planning grant money that we expend out of the bond proceeds. This has been recommended to us by council to make the reimbursement possible. And so the resolution specifies a anticipated maximum cost of the wastewater treatment facility improvements at $8.5 million.
Pleasure of the board. Okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt the declaration of official intent of the town of Middlebury to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness and authorize town clerk and Webster to sign the declaration certification.
Second.
That is a mouthful.
Tongue twister. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Next up is a request for sole source procurement of archaeological services for the Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project. You have in your packet the proposal from the firm that completed our first phase of archaeological survey, and we were quite happy with their services and would like to go forward with this. This, of course, is pending the go-ahead from FEMA, so we're hoping that the board will approve the sole source with the caveat that it has to be approved by FEMA before advancing.
I'll make a motion to award a contract for $5,182 under the sole source provision of the town procurement policy to Northeast Archaeological Research Center Incorporated for an archaeological Phase 1 survey of the East Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project area pending approval from FEMA.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
And then you asked for an update of where we are with regard to our strategic plan. And you have in your packet an update with the details of your top 3 priorities: the downtown bridge project, the water bond vote, and the Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project. And then also an update on what we've done in the last quarter and what we're planning to do in the current quarter, and then looking longer-term projects. So happy to answer any questions you have about the report or incorporate any feedback you have into future reports.
That's the purpose.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are our retreats and our prioritization helping inform your work?
Yes, I
Priorities.
used that to work with Heather to develop the priorities for the infrastructure committee, and it is being helpful to the department heads.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just want, the development of the performance management system, is that the fancy name for the,
Annual reviews?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're very close on that.
I just, some of us need the lay terms.
Okay.
That's the feedback I was looking for.
Yeah.
Approval of check warrants.
All right. I motion to approve total expenditures in the amount of $652,107.01, consisting of $544,692.97 for accounts payable and $107,414.04 for payroll for the period of July 11th, 2018 through July 31st, 2018.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Do you care to make the other correction also?
Oh, right, and so the warrant report for June 27th through July 10th presented at the board's last meeting contained an error in the amount reported for accounts payable. The correct amount is $507,066.87, not $234,713.82 as noted in the warrant report. The updated warrant report with the correct accounts payable number is included online. So we motion to approve to amend the June 27th through July 10th, 2018 warrant report to include the correct accounts payable amount for approval of $507,066.87.
Second.
They want to get out of here.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
You can give that
Aye.
to Barbara.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Kathleen.
Okay, I have a lot to report. As you remember, earlier in the summer, the board asked for a public meeting on the one-way traffic proposal for Merchants Row, and that has been scheduled and noticed for Tuesday, August 14th, your next meeting at 7:15. Please note that for that meeting, we will be in the Ilsley Library Community Meeting Room, as voting will be taking place in this room that day. We received notice of the Vermont Community Leadership Summit, which will take place on October 1st at Castleton University. The Vermont Council for Rural Development has invited the Selectboard to designate a local leader to participate in the summit, which is entitled Making It Happen, Local Leadership for the Future of Vermont Communities, and the registration for that person will be for free. More information is included in your packet, so I encourage you to think about who you'd like to designate to represent the town and discuss it further at your next meeting. As you
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
On the one-way traffic,
Mhm.
are we making sure to invite all of the business business/property landlords,
Stakeholders.
stakeholders, specifically,
One's on
I
merchants.
guess let me rephrase. Can we please make sure to invite them specifically to that?
Okay.
Thank you. Rather, I know you always get it out there to everyone, but I
Mhm.
want to.
We could do a notice to the downtown business owners.
When we have a DRB meeting in adjacent property,
Yep.
similar, that we let them all know that that public hearing has taken place, and that would be a good time to, and if they can't attend.
They could send their
submit,
comments.
like comments that people submit when they can't. Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay, and the town will reapply for the downtown transportation grant after the completion of the downtown bridge and rail project. As you may recall, in June, the town requested a 3-year extension of its downtown transportation grant for landscaping and pedestrian amenities for Triangle Park after the completion of the downtown bridge and rail projects. State downtown staff recommended to the downtown board that they deny the request for extension in order to provide funding for other shovel-ready projects. Based on this feedback, Community Liaison Jim Gish and I decided to focus on positioning the town for a successful grant application in 2020 rather than contest the recommendation not to extend the current grant. Just a heads up that the Addison County Regional Solid Waste Management District is soliciting letters of interest to participate in a regional drop-off center pilot project and has invited letters of interest from member municipalities, which are due on August 6th. I submitted a letter of support for the Hannaford Career Center's application for funding from the state's Regional Economic Development Grants Program to improve and enhance the Addison County makerspace. In order to meet the deadline for the submission of the grant application, based on the board's support for the makerspace, I submitted a letter of support for the application for funding, which is included in your packet. Negotiation of the contract with the new police department union is underway. We met with the union's representative on July 25th to establish ground rules for negotiations and set up dates for the first 2 bargaining sessions. We will keep you informed of our progress and anticipate that the contract will be presented to the board for ratification this fall. And there's going to be the 19th annual Vermont Emergency Preparedness Conference at Lake Maury in Fairleigh on September 7 to 8. And if you have any interest in attending, please let me know and I will register you. David Pistilli of the Middlebury Regional EMS is delighted to inform the board that they received funding of $32,400 towards the purchase of a new ambulance. As you may recall, the board supported this grant application in January 2017. Just giving you a feel for the glacial movement of these grant times, the grant processing timeline. Second Select Board meeting in September. Chris English, Assistant Town Manager Chris English, and I will be attending the International City and County Management Association's annual conference in Baltimore on Sunday, September 3rd through Wednesday, September 26th. Because I will not be available for the board's regularly scheduled meeting on September 25th, I'm suggesting that the board pencil in Thursday, September 27th as the date for the second meeting in September, and then review that scheduling when you meet on September 11th at your first meeting in September. Also, there will be a meeting on bears here at the town offices, where Dale Whitlock and other staff from Fish and Wildlife will answer all of your questions about bears and let you know more about bear habitat. And finally, on Friday at 4 o'clock on the town green, there will be a tour of the trees that are scheduled to be trimmed this fall. And that's it.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, that's all.
Can you all look at your calendar to see if that date works for you? Nick, I would need you to chair. I've got a meeting that whole week. I'll be out of state.
And Lindsay had also indicated that she won't be able to make it, so perhaps September 27th isn't a good fit.
I know, it's looking like it's not going to work for me either.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so maybe we'll get Kathleen to do a doodle poll. We can throw out some dates.
Do you want me to ask you about the other Tuesdays in September, the 18th and the following Tuesday, which is October 1st, I think?
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yes.
Okay, board member concerns. Heather? Farhad?
Yes, I'll be missing the next two select board meetings. I'm traveling outside the country. I'm going to Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks for my pilgrimage. I'm excited about that. So I'm leaving on the 11th of August. I'll be back on the 28th, I think. So we'll miss the meetings.
That's why.
That's why I told you I was going to be spiritual.
I didn't get it. I wasn't quick on the uptake. I had just eaten when I got here, and my
John Fried,
brains were on my stomach.
John Flowers interviewed me this morning, so I think he's going to run a
Great.
story on that
Oh, good.
this Thursday or the following Monday or something.
Are your kids going?
No, just me and my wife.
Just you and Elsa?
Yeah.
Cool, congratulations.
Actually, there are like 9 families going from Vermont. This is first of a kind for, Islamic community to have that many families. And these are all our best friends, my best friends, and my wife's best friends, and our kids are best friends, so it'll be a good trip for us.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and, wish me good luck. And I'll pray for all of you about that. So, a friend of mine brought this up about the crosswalk on Court Street and Cross Street.
Court Street and Cross.
Yeah, the cross street that goes onto Court Street.
I just talked to Bill this morning because I happened to see him, and he is going to be working on that in the next
Bill
week.
Kernan?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I don't know if you remember there was.
Washington Street by the co-op, so that area there.
No.
Oh, no, you're not talking
I'm
about
talking
that?
about Court Street and Cross Street.
Okay, what's the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, right
Yeah.
at the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crosswalk. Remember there was an accident not so long ago. There was a gentleman who got hurt in the winter. Mark, his name was. So the problem with that is if you're coming from the north and at the light, if the light turns green, people make that right turn.
Oh, yeah.
But the cross sign is lit. You have like 10 seconds to cross. While they're crossing, people are also turning, that's when that
Right.
gentleman got hurt. And she took some pictures, and she said she sent it to Kathleen? Did she send it to you?
So the timing-
I don't recall that.
She said she spoke to Dan Warner.
Okay.
So I just want to bring this up, and I don't know what, if there should be a right turn stop, red arrow on the right.
Because of the crossing, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's,
I know,
um,
sorry to interrupt, Victor, I know we've had some conversation in infrastructure about the timing of that light. Right at the moment, I can't recall the details, but we have an upcoming infrastructure committee, and we're looking at agenda, maybe we put it under,
Okay.
anyway,
yeah.
so noted, and
You can actually,
I know there are some issues with the timing of that light and the crosswalk timing and how it affects the rest of the timing all the way down. So
Right.
I know that's some of the issue that goes on there, so.
and she sent me pictures where it clearly shows there's 9 seconds left on that for people to walk, and there's somebody trying to turn, because they have a green signal to turn,
Right.
Right.
so
Okay.
it's a safety issue, I think.
Victor?
Nothing.
Nick?
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation not long ago, it was last week, with Chief Shaw, just to sort of get an understanding of what their schedules have been like. And he was telling me that, just an example, the weekend before last, within a 48-hour period, they had 5 alarms that included carbon monoxide detectors, smoke alarms, a multi-structure building fire over in Cornwall, brush fires, and response of the technical rescue for a personal injury accident. What this says is just reinforces is how much effort our volunteer professionals do as far as their training and their responding to help us when we need it. So I just thought that was interesting as to what their load is, and this seems to be an ongoing, consistent situation. So again, thank you to all of them. And then, of course, you travel safe.
Thank you. And by the way, I will be closed, I'm gonna close the store for a couple of weeks when I'm gone. So I'll have my peace of mind when I'm gone. Yeah, I don't want to worry about here.
Travel well.
Not after what you just experienced, right? Oh, well, good. Lindsay?
I just wanted to share for anyone out there who hasn't noticed that the library has a free streaming service now called Canopy with a K, and you can watch movies for free, and it's totally awesome. You get a certain number, if you have an Ilsley card, you get a certain number of movies that you can stream to your smart TV or your device every month, and they have a lot of international movies, and they have a lot of kids stuff, and they have a lot of documentaries. So just in case people didn't know, yeah, it's Canopy with a K.
I actually tried it out the other day.
Did you?
Because I'm working on my summer reading, summer adult reading, and that was one of the things to do, so.
Yeah,
And it worked pretty cool.
it's very cool.
I just registered for it, too.
Yeah.
It's set up on my tablet now, so.
It's quite a deal.
And you get 6 movies a month with your library card.
Right. And then if your kids have a library card,
Yes, my daughter has a library.
it's a lot of movies.
Bonus.
They have like lots of movies, right? Lots of choices.
I haven't even gotten that far into it.
There's like
but-
thousands of movies. on
Yeah,
there.
it's a lot of stuff, and it's stuff that's not necessarily on Netflix. Like, it's a lot of sort of,
Classics, huh?
yeah, well, a lot of, what do you call it, independent films and documentaries and stuff, so, yeah.
Laura?
I got to eat the Town Hall Theater tonight at their 10th anniversary party. They had a big cake in the shape of the Town Hall Theater, and I ate it. And so did a lot of others. So it was really fun, to see their celebration. It's quite an accomplishment, that we have the Town Hall Theater thriving. So I just wanted to congratulate them for their good work. And and all the efforts that many are making to keep our downtown vital. I love the gathering spaces that we see at the bakery, and at the co-op, the food co-op, the picnic areas, and that we know that people are looking for those gathering spaces. And I know we have a lovely plaza out here, and I imagine at some point maybe that we might see the tables and chairs out here that we once visioned when we were putting this building together. Although I know it's something to maintain, so it's a long-term discussion that we'll have, but I just hope for that. I like the idea of seeing more seating along Main Street and downtown, and we did talk about that in the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting a bit, really with regard to the addition of a bench that might be down by the Battelle block, just so that there be a little more seating along Main Street, knowing its constraints with width, because you have to make it passable too, still for mobility restricted individuals and our snowplows, et cetera. So speaking of access, so I did mention that Washington Street Extension has that ribbon candy that you bump over by the food co-op, and that our Public Works has it on their radar. It's not that they didn't mean to get to it, but they will be getting to it, and there's a longer answer if people want to have that, but just know that they are getting to that in the next week.
I think that is a function of paving companies'
Yes,
availability.
that's what he said, that it,
Is that too big of a job for our hot box?
Yes.
Is it?
mhm.
Yes, and there are several of them, and I
Mhm.
think Bill is trying to, Director of Operations is trying to coordinate.
Get them all done at the same time, yeah.
And my thought is for all the people who want bump outs and speed bumps.
I know.
there-
That's your experiment. I know.
There we go. That is my experiment right there.
Nicely done, you did a good job. You're excellent lad.
It's
I tell you, a water main break is really effective.
It's actually a good comment.
Don't forget our own block party that we're having on Main Street
Yes.
coming up on August 15th from 4 to 8 o'clock. That'll be after our
I volunteered
Next
to be
select
the
board meeting.
photographer on Karen's little
Mhm.
group thing, so I expect to see you all there so I can get your pictures.
Okay, well, thank you for, I thought a very deliberative, when I looked at the agenda, I thought we might be out of here at 8, but I think it's testimonial to the fact that when there's not full agreement, that we are very deliberative and don't ram it through, but appreciate everybody's input, and we'll see you, when's the next meeting?
August 14th?
August 14th.
Election Day.
Oh, yeah. Over at and we meet at the library. Okay.
Did the air conditioner get fixed over there?
The air conditioner was
It was cold there today.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? 9:14.